listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
To battle is to fight, to struggle, to overcome, and ultimately for the Marine Corps, it means to win. There is no alternative. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a promise to our nation. A promise kept for more than 2 centuries. A promise of the Marines.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and good morning. Good morning, listeners. 331-9255. You are listening and viewing the Kingston Community Radio Wednesday morning talk radio show. We're broadcasting live from our studios right here at 16 Lucas Avenue in Kingston, New York. And across from me here in the studio is the mayor of the Village of Sorgetes, Bill Murphy. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And we are expecting Supervisor Fred Costello. 331-9255, again, is our call-in number. We would love to hear from you on this Wednesday morning. What's new and exciting in the village?
New and exciting in the village? Oh, good question. Actually, kind of, well, you know, we've had a lot of the buzz lately the last couple of weeks.
With the filming, right?
Filming going on.
Yep.
This past Monday, they're on Elm Street. One of the older houses on Elm Street, and you know, the majority of the feedback's been positive. You know, there's always a few people who just, you know, I know they had a couple of run-ins with a couple of residents this past weekend on the no parking in front of the houses, and you know, they put the signs up on Friday and said there'd be no parking or reserved parking for Monday, and had 2 residents who vehemently protested it, even though they were given a week's, you know, almost 2 weeks' notice, letter in the mail, and you know, you don't own the street.
No matter what you do, you're never going to make everybody happy.
And it was, I mean, I guess, you know, they handled themselves, and I guess, you know, there's 2 of them, you know, they put their signs up, and then people took them out, put them on the ground, and stuff. But, you know, that doesn't represent the whole community as a whole, and they said overall it went off very well, so.
Good. And Supervisor Fred Costello from the town of Sorgetes.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Joining us. Good morning.
Good. I agree, Murph. The response for all that has been overwhelmingly positive.
I had people on Elm Street go, do you know they gave me $200 to use my driveway for the day?
Yeah, home run.
Paying $200 to let this film crew park trailers in their driveways.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, my brother was like, I'm going to be at work all day. I don't care. Use it, you know? But, you know, some people, and I get it. I mean, some people just aren't into it. But, you know, they've been great about communicating to people, you know, going door to door week prior to shoots and giving the information out when they're going to be there. And they clean up. There's no mess. I mean, it's the same as high school. You know, what they did at high school.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Again, it's positive. You know, you're talking, you know, for a period of time now, almost 8 for total, probably up to 8 months. You're going to have 300 people, part of the crew and everything like that are here, and living, staying in London and shopping in our stores. I remember Sharon told me that they're in their Smith Hardware every day buying stuff, for sets and
Yeah, they've had an amazing impact.
yeah, and you know they're there. A lot of times, because they move around.
Yep.
They've been in the village a couple times. I know they're out in different parts of the community, out in Hudson as well as Catskill, and it's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. They do have a big film crew because I think 6-7 different times, including this past. What was it?
Move over to here. This mic isn't working.
This
People
past.
said they can't hear you. Sorry.
I think it was this past Monday. Again, they used the Mosier Drive. Yeah, because they started filming on Elm Monday, right?
Right. Yeah, it was just one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used the old house down the end of the street. It's one of the houses that's funny. It's dilapidated, and it's a very older gentleman that lives there. And I know Bounties help him out and take care of him. I've had Habitat for Humanity come to me and say, "Hey, we'll do this house over." The guy's just set in his ways, and
He likes it the way it is.
he likes the way it is. And I think he's pretty much housebound. But the neighbors look out for him, and they picked that house out. They're like, "Hey, can we use it?" And I put them in touch with the little Bounty family and said, "Hey, these are the one you want to talk to?" And they're able to do it. And from all I can tell, it was a successful shoot.
Yeah.
I drove by a few times, and it seemed very unintrusive what was going on.
Yeah, just folks. There's some folks who don't want to be inconvenienced at all. When we were fixing the gas mains, they were upset.
Yeah, true.
When we paved the road, they get upset because it takes 2 days, one day to prep it, one day to pave it, and I get it.
They're the first one to call and complain when there's potholes in the road.
Truth. So I try to keep perspective on that and take it with a grain of salt. That studio moving to Saugerties is really, it's going to be a transformative economic event regarding jobs, regarding demand for local services and taxes and all the revenue. And there's a level of excitement that we haven't experienced in years.
I know a lot of people who've gotten parts as extras, even besides my daughter and her friend. I mean, there's a lot of local people who are being hired as extras. I mean, they're getting paid $400 or $500 a day to basically sit there.
Yep.
My daughter made almost $1,000 for 2 days of just sitting there.
Yes.
It's long days. It's 14 hours. You might be there 14 hours for 2 minutes of work, but you're on set and
the kids are home from school over the summer.
What a great opportunity!
They work all summer. They're going to make $5,000-7,000 maybe, and then in 2 days they're making $1,000. Good for them.
I know.
There's no other opportunity like that. That's just and I think it's going to be a moment of pride when this
show premieres and we get to see it. Oh my God, I'm excited!
They're going to celebrate it at the Orpheum, and it's going to be a community event, and it's going to be great.
I'm still asking for a mayor cameo, but they haven't taken me up on it.
I didn't get called yet either.
I know.
We do have faces for radio, though.
I do. I agree. I agree, but
we might be waiting for a while if we're looking for that call. But I thought,
hey, hair and makeup can do a lot, Fred.
Hair and makeup can do a lot. Get the right angle. So yeah, it's I think it's really exciting. And there's going to be.
And the thing is, you only hear the negative feedback. People aren't going to call my office and say, "Hey, that was great. They were here."
True.
They're not.
Yeah.
They might tell you in passing when you see them, but you're not going to get calls of compliments. You only get calls and complaints.
That's true.
So that's just the nature of the beast.
But
nobody picks up a phone and calls the mayor's office to tell you, "I'm happy with everything."
Yeah, it's a really nice
occasionally. I have to say,
does it happen? Wow.
I have to say, matter of fact, I was an Elm Street resident, and it was one of my coolest days as mayor. Probably about a month ago, in my office, and my girls come back and they said, "Oh, Al Hoff's here to see you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And Al comes in and he goes, "Murph," he goes, "I just want to tell you, I've known you since you were a kid, and and I just think you and your staff and everybody in the village do a great job, and I'm proud to say, I've known you since you were a baby," and it was just a really cool conversation to have. But then we started talking about things, and he goes, "Well, that film crew," he goes, "I went to get my hair cut today at
Union Chief?
No, the one that used to be next to Tony, Miss Kelly's,
Yep.
And I couldn't get a parking spot because they had them blocked off for the film crew." He goes, that cost Miss Kelly $25 today, and probably other people. And I said, "Well, Al," I said, "in all fairness, I mean, I know you have trouble walking, so you need to park right in front, but most people could park at Stewart's down the street and walk down. He's like, yeah, I didn't think about that. And I told him the economic impact it have. He's like, yeah, of course, that makes sense too. I said, I'll tell you what, Al, come back tomorrow. You can park in the handicap spot in front of my office, and I'll have one of my girls walk you down, because he needs
He needs a little bit of help.
to get a haircut. He goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, I'm in. He came back the next day. The girls walked him down. He got a haircut. He was happy. But it was just one of those cool experiences to have with, to me, someone who's been a part of the community forever. Al's probably he's been here forever, and our families grew up together. And not that he was complimenting, it was just a cool conversation to have with somebody who's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Back in the day, in my early days, Al would also be someone to come in when he had an issue and let me know,
Yes. Yeah, we have a couple of those.
Yeah, so, yeah. It's just one of those cool moments I had as mayor, and, he said my water supervisor stinks, but,
Well, of course, he still wants to ground them. And,
the son,
Exactly.
So for those who don't know, his son's my water supervisor, but it was, it was fun. And so those days make up for a lot of the BS days,
I guess I'll start. Greg gave us a bunch of announcements. I have for immediate release, Kingston Tiger Band returns to competition. And they'll be going to Schenectady, New York. The Kingston Tigers marching band scored 73,550 on Moccasin High School on Saturday in its first competition since finishing second in the 2019 State Field Championships. Wow. I wonder how the scoring works for that. 73,000?
Out of what, 100,000? Or what?
Yeah, I'm curious how it goes.
And what are they, points?
It just said 73,550. So I don't know if that's points or if that's a cumulative score, but I'm curious. That's a lot of parameters to adjust for.
I guess so.
So this score placed them second among competitors at Moccasin, and the marching band will compete in 4 additional field band competitions across the state this fall, accumulating with the New York State Field Band Championship on October 31st in the Carrier Dome at Syracuse University. The annual fall fanfare, the band's home competition, will take place at Dietz Memorial Stadium on Sunday, October 24th. So they got some nice activity coming up. Greg, which band used to come and practice at Canton?
That was the Rochester Statesmen, and that was the state competition held at Dietz Stadium.
Okay.
So they would arrive on Friday afternoon. They would do a little bit of rehearsal Friday evening, stay at the ice arena Friday night, and then utilize usually soccer field number 3, where they actually, with chalk, they kind of outlined what would be a football field, because that's what Dietz was lined out for. And they would do, their rehearsals all day long. And then they put on a little show at about 4:45. And, of course, going way back when Tommy Diedrich...
I was going to say, Tommy Diedrich loved that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, Tommy Diedrich somehow was instrumental. He had a connection somehow. He was instrumental in bringing them, because they were looking for a place, and to have 100 of them in a hotel or a motel was next to impossible on a weekend in August. Plus, I think it was also a hits weekend. And anyway, make a long story short, then they would go and do the competition. Several years we went, and then they would sleep over on Saturday, get up Sunday morning, and head back to Rochester.
Literally slept in the ice rink? Yeah. Did they really? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was thinking, Tommy, when you...
That's where we got the cots. They paid, the Rochester Statesmen paid for 100 cots.
Tommy's 2 favorite things were drum corps and thunder and lightning storms.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh, he would love to sit on his porch and watch a storm come in. But he would travel all over the place for drum corps competitions.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was a big fan of drum corps competitions. Oh, he was a character. No question about it.
He is too, but you can't have a bad time with those people.
I actually, when I got hired at IBM, I replaced him.
Did you really?
I took his job. He retired, and I replaced his job at IBM 26 years ago. Yep.
Quite a character.
Yes, he was. All right, we have YMCA Bike Friendly Kingston to host bike repair clinic September 22nd. Is your bike ready to ride? Biker Friendly Kingston, the YMCA of Kingston and Ulster County will be hosting the next free bicycle repair clinic on Wednesday, September 22nd. That's today. Come to the Y parking lot on Pine Grove Avenue in Kingston between 3 and 6 p.m. to have your bike checked over. What else do you what else do you need to bike this summer? A bell is required by New York State law, and if you ride after dark, you need a set of front and rear lights. If you're under 14 years of age, a helmet is required while riding. You can get bells, lights, and bike helmets at the clinic. No advance registration required. The event is free, but donations are welcome. Be sure to bring your bike and wear a mask or other face coverings if you're not vaccinated. In case of bad weather, the rain date is Thursday, September 23rd. For more information, contact the YMCA Bicycle Program Manager, Tom Polk, at 338-3810, extension 102. And again, that is today from 3 to 6 at the Y parking lot on Pine Grove Avenue in Kingston.
Okay.
I need lights for my bike.
You need what?
I need lights for my bike. I just got a new bike, and I was riding last night, and it got dark. It was getting darker early, and I'm like, I better get lights on this bike. I gotta, lead by example here.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I try to stay like Finger Street, Washington Avenue. I go through the field a few times, do a few loops around the field, but I'm like, I probably should get lights.
And most of our viewers and listeners, I believe, know that the Garlic Festival is back this year after a 1-year hiatus. And just to give advance, like we were talking about advance notice, the Garlic Festival is not this weekend. It's the following weekend. But just for everybody's information, obviously the weekend October 2nd and 3rd, when the Garlic Festival takes place, the only vehicle access into the complex, if you are not a permit holder, are those who are handicapped. Will be handicapped parking in parking lot A, and then also on-site parking, which we are again doing for the economical price of $10 per vehicle per day. You can purchase on-site parking, and you can either go on to the Hudson Valley Garlic Festival website, the Kiwanis Ice Arena website, and just Google Garlic Festival parking. It'll bring you right to a link. You pay via PayPal. It takes literally probably less than a minute to do. It's the only on-site parking that that's taking place in the complex. Free parking is still going to be available in the HITS parking lots, primarily their RV parking lot, which is the orange parking lot. And then also, commencing next Wednesday, this will be a week from today, on September 29th, traffic will be restricted or road closures take place on Bob Mosier Drive, Pavilion Street, and Court Drive. So there'll be no through traffic during this time frame. And likewise for the 4th and 5th of October, and that's to facilitate cleanup and post-festival related work. Mike Kraut Road on the 2nd and 3rd, 2 hours prior to the start of the Garlic Festival, which is 10 a.m., and up until 5 p.m. in the afternoon will be one-way westbound. So from basically the intersection of Mike Kraut Road and 9W to Peoples Road will be one-way westbound.
All right. Looking forward to that. It would be fun to get back to normal.
Yes.
As you're reading that, I was thinking for some reason about all the activity on Cantine and we always talk about the economic multiplier effect, and I was thinking about the film studio activity. And we get complaints about that too. We hold the
Garlic Festival?
Yeah, because of the traffic and the inconvenience and, how it's running. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, Kiwanis is always looking for volunteers. If you have a lot of ideas, call them up. They'll be happy to have you.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I was with Greg the first year, working for Greg the first year. He held the Garlic Festival at Cantine. Mm-hmm. I remember it was one day thing, and I don't think any of us really knew I mean, Ricky Smith was running it, right? Ricky's one that brought it there originally.
Ricky, Jack Wilsey.
Yeah, and Ricky and I just, never anticipated it turn into what it turned into, which within a couple of years, it just exploded.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've watched the traffic pattern, and I know how much time Greg put into it, the state police, and the traffic pattern now is phenomenal compared to what it was the first couple of years. I mean, the first couple of years, it was a cluster, because no one knew what to expect. It moved from a farm to Cantine Field. It went from a few thousand people to, tens of thousands. And thank God I got out of there. I got stopped working for him just in time before it blew up. I think my last year there was the first year. It was a 2-day thing, and then where it started getting really big, and it was like, holy cow, this thing is,
It's a cool event.
I love garlic, but I go up, I get a sandwich, I walk around a little bit and leave. It's just like it's something, I just don't like huge crowds either, But people tell me negative. I'm like, before I was married, I lived on Elm Street, and since I lived on the other side, I've never had a negative impact from it, and I live as close to Canton Field as anybody else does.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I'm out in the yard mowing the lawn. I can smell a little hint of garlic, makes me hungry. And it's phenomenal. It really is, and it brings a great level of people to Sorganies too.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
And I'm quite a number of years ago, and having conversation with it was either Greg or Thomasine Hellsmortal. There's a couple of families, and now since that time, maybe even further, as a result of coming to the Garlic Festival, they purchased property or they purchased homes.
I have no doubt
in the Sorganies area.
I have no doubt. I mean, it's and people don't realize. I mean, this is. I remember 25 years ago, 30 years ago, where people come from. It's not New York State. The people are coming from Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maine, Jersey, Pennsylvania. They're coming from all over the place for this festival. Probably, I'm sure there's people that come from a lot farther away than that as well.
Once in a while I run into folks, and it just happened. There was a group of fairly young ladies who were here on an excursion, and they came here just for some hiking opportunities. And they're super nice people, and they traveled, and they were asking about the Garlic Festival, and they're like, "Ooh, we should see if the house is open, and we'll come back. We'll rent the house and stay for that weekend too." And I'm like, just kind of neat,
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's good problems we're having right now. A lot of economic activity.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. There's that economic multiplier.
Mm-hmm.
And you just stop. We talked this morning about the filming that's going on. We talked about the Garlic Festival, a couple of other events, and all the events that the food truck festival last week.
Oh, that was really well. That was great.
The crowd was tremendous, but maybe I knew 10% of the people that I saw.
That's true.
If that.
Yeah.
And I know there was a lot of people that, from out of town. I have a habit.
Did you have mac and cheese?
I hate mac and cheese.
Oh my God.
But did you see the line for the mac and cheese truck?
Went onto the back. For people that know the layout of the complex, you have the pavilion, and the truck was up against the pavilion, the enclosed section.
Yep.
And the line went across the road onto the basketball court.
I couldn't believe it.
Onto the basketball court.
I couldn't believe it. So, it's not so. If it's a side at a barbecue, I'll have some, but I don't ever seek it out. Now I want to follow that food truck just to see what the draw is. That line was huge.
What we cook, and we actually had it last night for dinner, Dan. We make buffalo mac and cheese, buffalo chicken mac and cheese. It is freaking delicious. Yeah, I'm a big mac and cheese fan.
Big mac and cheese.
When I was away this past weekend, the golf with the guys, we were in one restaurant one night, and I had pulled pork mac and cheese.
Yum.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was different spin on it. I've had lobster mac and cheese. Have you never had lobster mac and cheese?
I had lobster salad with pasta in it.
I've had lobster mac and cheese at Front Street Tavern in Kingston. Delicious. Oh God, but then it goes right through me. I only rent it. I'll tell the waitress I want to rent a plate of lobster mac and cheese.
That was the only other line I saw that approximated that was the fish guy off the hook.
Yeah.
He does have really
Dana
good
said she
food.
went up there. She said, I heard every week it was packed.
It was.
Yeah.
Even the rainy week, the food truck still did pretty well. So, I don't know, next year we're going to have to, we kind of evolved this year already.
How many weeks did you have it this year?
Only do 3 a year. And the point of that is to try to raise money to rebuild Small World Playground.
Oh,
and it was really successful this year. They raised, I think we raised like $12,000 or $13,000.
What's that? Fees for the trucks that come?
The fees for the trucks that come generally pay for the band and the cost of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But we donate beer from our restaurant, and they try to pay us back for it. And Peggy donates wine, and they try to pay back for that too. But the point of that is those beer and wine sales, whatever revenue gets generated, is dedicated back to Small World Playground. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we're fairly on our way. They must have probably close to $20,000 set aside for that project now. So the closer we get to having a local match to fund a grant, the closer we'll be to put a new playground together. And that would be I'm looking at Greg because how many years have we talked about that? At least 10, because we knew the playground as it exists was hitting the end of its useful life, and then
I remember when that was built as well.
that was a pretty exciting time too.
What year was that built in originally?
94.
94? That was just, a couple years before I left.
It was one of the last surviving leather-style playgrounds that was built at that time, and that was a credit to Greg and his staff for maintaining it as well as they did all those years. But
That's a lot of maintaining.
it's a lot of maintaining, so the redesign is going to be a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. I know, we're in.
No, but we don't know back then. I mean,
No.
come on, look at the playgrounds we had. Like I've had to renovate everybody's had to renovate their playgrounds in the last 20 years. I mean,
Well, not only that, but the makeup of the wood.
Yeah.
Back then was a
Exactly
standard.
friendly,
It was a standard in playground construction of leather styles playground, wooden playgrounds, and then just living in the Northeast and the weather we experience in the Northeast, you take over a period of time, and in this case here, 26 years, it gets weathered, it gets splintered, and
kind of snickering a little bit. So we get the report because we had it appraised for its usefulness and if there's anything left. And you read the report and there's all this terminology in there about wood that I'd never heard before, checking and all these other terms. I'm like, what the hell? Who wrote this? But, it was interesting to learn about that. And kind of wood degrades from the inside out as well as outside in. And as it dries,
well, what was, what really had concerned me was we checked the where the columns that provide the structural integrity for the different components of the playground. So as you remove the mulch at the playground mulch on the ground and put a shovel into the ground, some of those were half the size of what they were previously because they had rotted slowly over a period of time to where, if they were once an 8-inch diameter, they're down to like a 4-inch diameter. And you would kick the thing and literally large splinters, shavings of wood. And that was the reason that the first thing that went several years ago was the swings. Because you can imagine the stress of children on swings, adults on swings, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And those were in rough shape. And when we pulled those things out, it just basically
reinforced that we needed to.
Yeah.
I could pull them out by hand, some of them.
It didn't take a whole lot of effort, but there is still a small playground there. Greg's staff, Dan Kogel, led the team. We moved a newer style playground from Sophie Finn School.
Right.
After
Ulster County, at the Ulster County Board.
That's right. Yep.
So that is still there.
Yeah.
Yep. And
that's I don't want to say it's a good size. It's a medium
Something,
size
yeah.
and serves a purpose. And of course, we did submit through the CFA for a grant to for a playground.
some improvements.
And if we get that will be the start of that'll be the start. And we can take that money and then the money that's in the Recreation Trust Fund. And I don't know if I mentioned this previously on the air, but Sawyer Savings Bank had their 150th community celebration day back on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. And during that event, presented us a check to put towards a Small World Playground for $2,500. And I thought that was an extremely nice gesture of Sawyer Savings Bank. They do so much in the community. They do so much at the complex, and to turn around and make a sizable donation of $2,500 was quite impressive.
Yeah, it really was. They're a great group of people to work with.
Yeah.
Doug's done such a good job picking up on a long legacy that he inherited from Gabe and Tony Cemento and all that. Yeah, I mean those folks. It's a really good culture over there because they pick pretty special people, and they just, when they take on that leadership role at the bank, they get involved in Qantas and all these other organizations. And, Jim Whitaker, I think that might have been his first job working at Sawyer Bank as a teller.
Really?
And, and now
look how he worked his way up.
and he's the VP, and boy, he gets it, and he's such a great example on how to be a community bank and help, during COVID, how many businesses did they write for, and they were just, they were terrific partners. So, pretty exciting.
There are partners on our village revolving loan fund too, I believe.
I think they are. Yeah. So 150 years doesn't happen by mistake. That's pretty special.
And you're right. All of them. You stop and think of the employees that are there, even today, how involved they are with the community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he still is, but I know Jim Whitaker was president of Kiwanis.
Yep.
Usually, it might be right after the Garlic Festival is when they change officers, and I don't know if it's a 1 year or 2 year term. And then, of course, Jen was on the foundation that was formed to rebuild the Small World Playground, and obviously, she still wants to be involved. She wants to see it move forward. So it's like you said, with going over 150 years, they certainly have to be doing something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got a nice lineup. We're getting near the bottom of the hour, and we got March Gallagher. I believe she'll be coming to the studio at 7:30, and then our New York State Assemblyman Kevin Cahill will be here from 8 to 9 a.m. And with that, we'll be back in a few.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Screening exams for breast, lung, or colorectal cancers are necessary to detect and treat disease at its earliest, most curable stage. But you may have some concerns and questions. Answer your questions and ease your fears by visiting radiologyinfo.org. In addition to information on screening and wellness, you'll find more than 200 descriptions of radiologic exams, procedures, and treatments to help you prepare. Get informed and be prepared. Visit radiologyinfo.org. Produced by the Radiological Society of North America and the American College of Radiology.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio has been brought to you by the First Savings Bank in Ulster County that still remains local to this day. Ulster Savings Bank, a community bank that's invested in local business, invested in community, invested in you. Ulster Savings Bank, your one-stop resource for everything local. Locations throughout the Hudson Valley and online at ulstersavings.com. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence. And for those listeners and viewers who have been with us, welcome back. Those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. You're listening and viewing the Kingston Community Wednesday morning talk radio show. And in the studio here, March Gallagher, our county comptroller, just walked in. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Somebody here doesn't like mac and cheese. Is that you, Greg?
That's me. That is me.
I take that as a challenge. Like, I'm a mac and cheese maker, so now I'm like, maybe I'll have to bring some Greg at work.
It's got to be some type of seafood mac and cheese to even get Greg to put a fork in. Okay. He's a disciplined eater.
You guys were making me wish I had been at the food truck festival. I was out of town, but it looked like it was amazing.
It was awesome.
Oh, it was. Yeah. And also, we have our mayor of Village of Sorgaties, Bill Murphy, and Supervisor Fred Costello from the town of Sorgaties. Yeah, it's been quite a number of years, and who knows, maybe my taste buds have changed, but... And by the way, I was not about to get in that line, okay?
No, me neither, but I was curious.
That had to be an hour wait.
Probably.
I got in one line, because I brought some dinners home, and I bet I waited a half hour.
Yeah, I expect that. And we expanded the trucks. You know,
well, this is the first time the mac and cheese guy was there.
The first time the mac and cheese guy was there. But Howie Post, his wife Gail, and Marjorie Block, you know, they
rock
really,
it out.
Yeah, they're the ones that lubricate that and make it happen. And it was progressively more and more successful. The first one was overwhelmingly successful. We based the interest in it over what happened 2 years ago before COVID, and we wanted to make sure the trucks make money too.
Right.
So we kind of only had, I think, 5 trucks. But after that first event, we had to get way more beer and wine and way more food trucks.
People love it. I mean, we had at the Bloomington Fire Department last night, we had our food truck festival. It's not a festival, but our food truck night, and it was packed. Absolutely packed.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I love eating outside. Let's not get rid of that after COVID goes away.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's going to be a challenge for the state, though.
Well, we'll have to figure it out. We have to innovate a little bit.
But it's going to be, like during COVID, it was kind of a relief
Exceptions
in a way.
were made, right.
Yeah, because we operate with a liquor license, and the restrictions on that are very specific about the area you can serve alcohol and people can carry it around. And during COVID, those were relaxed significantly.
Yeah.
But now as we're going back to more normal, those restrictions are back, and now it's a problem with your customers because like, what do you mean I can't take it home? You can't take it home. That was a special circumstance. We can't put it in a paper cup. You have to drink it here. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I know the legislature had considered some legislation that would kind of make that a permanent opportunity for takeout drinks. Maybe they'll consider that, and even using outdoor dining. We had tables outside of our restaurant, and people could consume wine and beer out there just as though they were inside.
Right.
But that was because of the relaxing of the restrictions on us. Now they're kind of back.
Even though your parking lot is private as opposed to the village streets, one cannot go in
because
your...
the liquor license really is contained to the footprint of the building.
And
they'd have to
interior
revise
of the
all
building.
those.
Yeah.
Let's get Vince Bradley on the phone and see if we can fix that.
Yeah,
I don't envy him right now.
No.
We ignored it in the village this summer anyways and did it anyway. So, well, seriously, I mean, I'd rather
Have people dining and doing business. Yeah.
I'd rather extra forgiveness than extra permission sometimes. And, we weren't going to put that restriction. I mean, for the ones that called me, I said, yeah, just keep doing, And so I think we had more tables on the sidewalk this summer than we did last summer.
We did.
In front of restaurants, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? They need that opportunity.
Yeah. But the liquor licenses really only permit consumption in the dining spaces of those facilities. So if you're outside of it...
My only restriction is outdoors has to be in a plastic or paper container. It can't be any glass outside.
That's smart.
Right, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
I really like what Kingston did. And I realize, if you try to do something like that in Sorgaties, you'd have everybody up in arms that you're taking parking spaces away.
There's two components to that, though. I mean, the city streets are the city streets. In Sorgaties, those streets are both state roads.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. I can't do that on main and partition. And I had some arguments with business owners over that, and I'm like...
Not our streets.
It's not our streets. It's owned by the state, and fortunately, like on Main Street, the sidewalks are wide enough where you can put some tables and still have room to walk through. Partition's a little tougher, but,
Well, I mean, I hate to base the whole economy on drinking, but I did want to let you guys know that, in our mid-year sales tax report, we were looking at the industry sales by particular industries, and the largest growth industry in Ulster County was beverage manufacturing. So that is like breweries, wineries, distilleries grew 871%.
Wow.
$49 million in taxable sales. So the sales tax year runs March through February. So if you compare March of 2020 through February of 2021 to the prior sales tax year, it grew 871%. Now, a lot of things are bouncing back, like restaurants, visitation, automobile sales. But that one popped out as a big wow. And I think we have a lot more breweries, distilleries, and wineries than we had.
Also, that statistic's a little bit skewed because we went from such a small number to a measurable number now.
Absolutely. But $49 million increase is sizable for an industry like that. And
It's
it
likely
brings
to
a lot of
continue
people
to
to
grow
visit.
a little bit.
I think it's going to keep going. Yeah.
Because,
I was just in Lake George this past weekend with the guys, and two of the guys I drive up with, their goal is to tour every brewery they possibly can, or distillery, and they have a list. There's actually a club. Like I call them a cult. They actually have a book that has everyone in New York State, and they check them off.
And it keeps growing, so
keeps
they're going to keep going.
And we hit 4 on the way up to Lake George on Thursday. They want to stop in. I said, I don't even drink, and I've hit 24 breweries in the last 3 years.
Job driving, yeah.
But and every one of them is just more beautiful than the previous place. I mean, they're nice places. They offer nice food.
Mm-hmm.
And, I get to judge the best cream soda around because usually, but it's, and Lake George is filled with breweries and distilleries. It's unbelievable. I mean, like a couple per block.
The state really made a priority out of that, especially
And we
through the
spearheaded
CFA.
it here. I mean, Tommy Keegan and Tuttletown Distillery, so those two businesses were really at the beginning of both of their industry sectors, right? We didn't even have distilling in New York State, wasn't even allowed until Tuttletown came along.
And figured out how to do it.
So, yeah. Then on the other numbers, I'll just tell you that, we're $20 million up in revenues from where we were at the same time, June 30 of this year compared to last year, and $6 million down in expenditures. That's amazing. That is largely because of the early retirement incentive that was put in place. And you can look at last year and say, well, that was a pandemic year, so comparing that doesn't count, except we closed last year with a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to close this year with an even bigger surplus, and that doesn't include ARPA. So we really need to be thinking about, what is the most careful thing we can be doing with our money going forward? And what should we be investing in for, the 5, 10, 20, 50-year time frame? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a interesting thing to happen because 2 years ago that was not the paradigm of the moment. We were worried about trying to save money, and going into COVID, I think we were all wringing our hands pretty hard, worried about how are we going to sustain the services that we provide, especially the essential
In 2 or
ones.
3 years from now, it may not look like this. So
I
we have to be very.
Don't you think a lot of that increase in spend migrated from the city up towards us?
Well, that's what my deputy comptroller, Alicia DeMarco, was saying. New York City sales tax has not done as well, and that's because people downstate are up here now, and they're spending their money up here, and they could go back to the city. It's just not as stable of a source of revenue as we thought that it was at one
But I
time.
think it's overall it's going to be a permanent increase because not everybody's going to go back.
I think that's true. We have so many more work from home folks, and we're just doing well.
But I also feel, because I wrestle this in my mind as well, and I feel that phenomenon about folks spending time up here was absolutely a fact. But there are businesses that have come here, either they migrated from the city or they were seeded prior to COVID and they're kind of just getting hold now, like the film industry. And we're going to have marijuana sales here relatively soon. I think there's a lot of reasons to feel optimistic that our economy is going to sustain these numbers, and the economic activity is going to justify sales tax in the range that we're experiencing now, and there's going to be the job opportunities that come along with it to kind of I think the housing market's a little bit bubbly, but I think there's economic activity kind of supports the increase in the housing market too.
I agree with that. I mean, manufacturing is something I think that we should be looking more and investing in more and supporting more because it brings money in from out of the area. And we have a bunch of that in Saugerties, and we have it around Ulster County. I mean, I've been into a lot of the manufacturing facilities, so I've seen them, and other people don't even know the amazing things that we make. We make absolutely stunning things. I mean, Cirrus Technologies is a perfect example on Kings Highway. It's, they are serving the semiconductor industry all over the world, and we don't even think about it. We don't even see it.
They're invisible somehow, but they're at the forefront of what they do. They are the premier manufacturers of that equipment.
Yeah, and gas deposition
It's amazing.
manufacturing
Right? Yep.
equipment. Kevin Brady and I went up to Albany Nanotech, and we were walking through the facility. This is many years ago. And you're looking through the glass windows, and you can see these huge semiconductor machines. And he says, "That's our equipment. That's our equipment. That's our equipment," because their equipment is supply chain fed into like Toshiba and all these other companies that make equipment that goes into making semiconductors. So yeah, I think manufacturing is something we need to focus on more. And I'm excited. I am excited to see some plan for Winston Farm. It's very interesting to hear people talking about it. Somebody said to me, "Well, this is the good old boys." I'm like, "Yeah, well, at least they're from here, at least they're local." And yeah, you know what? I mean, I know Johnny Mullen for many years, and he is a good old boy, and he's a good guy. I mean, I'm like,
all three of them are.
I don't know the other two fellows as well, but like the way I met Johnny was that he was working on the Boys and Girls Club in the village, and he came to me and he was like, we're having a zoning board of appeals issue, and you do, some land use work. Would you help us figure out how we can get this counted as a non-conforming building? And it was really just from his generosity, you know what I mean? He was doing the work for free, and he asked me if I would come do the work for free, so we were working on it together. So I think we communities need to be thinking about, what is it we want to see out of these projects? What do we need to get? And what do we want to see? Is there infrastructure we need to have? Is there certain types of housing we need to see? Is there a certain affordability level? Is there certain manufacturing or industrial space that we feel like is necessary to make it worth doing? Because we've seen a lot of bad ideas for that property.
And I'm going to answer your question. Yes, to all those points. And then some. There's opportunities.
It's unbelievable because Freddie and I, we've been on this since the beginning, and he's got all those areas covered for that property.
I know.
It's amazing. I mean, I think what they tell us, when they're all done, it's over $1 billion build out on that property.
Yeah, it's
years and years ago, Hudson Valley Economic Development Corporation did some work that Central Hudson paid for, kind of looking at what could you do on the property. I know they have that material. And I know people love the scenic natural beauty. I get that. And I've seen some people saying like, wow, I see that hotel now behind the historic building. We do need to be careful. We need to be thinking about the way things look and how it's going to affect the entrance to the town. But it also is a tremendous opportunity to really do something right, I think. So
I do too. And I'll start with the sleigh riding hill at Snyder's. And Snyder's Farm in general. I mean, John and Randy and
Tony.
Anthony, they know the significance of that building, and they celebrate.
My first field trip from Cahill was to Snyder's Farm.
And I don't think the hill's going to be affected by it. There's still going to be hundreds of acres undeveloped on that property. They're going to be left
huge amount of green space.
Yeah, it's over 800 acres.
Yeah. And I think I'm going to caution people too. This is the beginning of a pretty long road. There's going to be a full-blown seeker process. And I like the idea that the developers are local folks who are sensitive to the community's wants and needs. We're not going to make everybody happy. I'm under no illusion about that whatsoever. But at least they're here and they get it. They played on that property the same way we all did.
And what a lot of people don't know is that after they purchased that property, immediately they had an offer to sell that property to Amazon for a profit. And refused it because they knew it wasn't right for Sorganies.
Yeah.
They wanted an Amazon warehouse and what do you call it?
Distribution centers. I mean, look at Orange County. There's so many distribution centers. They are very low-paying jobs, by the way. You're seeing them really struggle to fill positions. So I don't necessarily think that's the best thing for us. And we're not at a crossroads the same way 84 and 87 is in Orange.
And something you just pointed to, the work that was done, it's 13 years old, that document that Central Hudson sponsored in Hudson Valley Economic Development. And there's still, it's a little bit expired because it's 13 years old, but there's still some really relevant points in there. And they pointed to the semiconductor industry back then, and that is absolutely relevant, especially given the crisis in getting access to chips. And it pointed to caution when it came to warehouse distribution all the way back then, and biotech and warehouse distribution and all those uses that were identified are still relevant. So I think those are important conversations to have too.
Right. And, I think, community members are very circumspect about tax pilot agreements. And, you just saw the IDA implemented a housing pilot moratorium last week. We need more housing, so I think really there should be a full court press to try to figure out what those pilots should look like if we're going to do them, and maybe we need to if we want to have affordable units because the costs are really a lot.
We only have 13 minutes, but you just, you just opened an iceberg. So there's a whole thing about housing pilots too. There's a state code that restricts how assessors can view housing projects. And I know the public's going to get into a snit over this, and I get it. I understand the concern. But the reality is, if I develop a project that is less than market rate, I am entitled to be assessed at less than market 581A. Thank you.
581A, which says we're going to base it on the rental value. It still isn't perfect because it really is focused on a certain type and affordability of housing, and I think we know now in the planning world that mixed income housing is the best. That makes the best community. It makes the most vibrant community. It makes the most successful kids. So we have to think about other tools for that. But I do think there's a real opportunity when we look at Winston Farm and Tech City. These big properties. We have to be thinking really creatively about how we're going to address the tax situation. I am not for 50, 30, even 20-year pilots. I don't like them. It's too long. I don't know where we're going to be in 20 years. 20 years from now, half of Queens is going to be flooded out, and they're going to be moving up here.
Probably, yeah.
So what are we doing?
Yeah. No, I think there's a relevant part to that. But I think to pilots, and they are certainly a difficult topic to overcome, especially when the project might be unwelcome in the neighborhood it's proposed in. But those pilots are a tool to mitigate some of the impacts of 581A and if there are specific need that you can identify, you can do a payment in lieu of that 581 program. And in many cases, you can better fund the agency that's being impacted in a specific way by doing a pilot. So there's reasons to sit down and really go through that. And it's complicated and it's frustrating when we are paying on our single family home and we feel like we're all paying too much.
We can maybe change the terminology and call it a host community benefit agreement because pilot has a very specific, like you're supplementing the taxes with a smaller payment, but I think we do have to think about how we get what we need for our communities out of these larger projects and we have to get more aggressive about saying to the project, this is what we need or want. I served on the IDA for a few years, and I'm so proud of some of the work that we did. I'm going to just name some of the projects that got done during that time. Woodland Pond, largest IDA project ever, 117 million. It's 600 jobs and, a lot of seniors there. But the Emerson Hotel, the spa at Mohonk. I mean, these are just like huge job creators. So, and don't come at me with they're the lowest paying jobs. I know hospitality isn't the highest paying job, but there were a bunch of manufacturing facilities done too. I think we have to really
and Sardi's a couple of the projects benefited from those.
Absolutely.
Elna and Simulades, and those are
great companies.
They're Anchor.
Diamond Mills.
Yep, Diamond
Mills was another one.
Yeah. So there's a place for that. And I think there's a gap in public knowledge. And even for us as community leaders, I mean, I've kind of been around for a while, so I've been exposed to it enough that I kind of get it a lot better at a different level. But it's there's a place for that. And as we're talking, I'm thinking optimistically about the former IBM site because finally the county government, Pat's leadership, we're kind of taking over that property. And part of the rub that prohibited that from being redeveloped was that the ownership really didn't care.
No,
to say the least.
I spent a lot of time with the. Well, he's still the current owner.
I know, but at least we're getting back some of those buildings, and I think there's a sincere effort now to get those places redeveloped and occupied and become productive again.
I love that site. That site has amazing transportation, 1 million gallons of water and sewer a day. At one point, it had 2.5 million square feet of space. A lot of that space isn't usable, but like for example, the buildings that the county has, the Bank of America building now, that is usable space. And Allen Ginsberg, the owner of the property, he did do some things that he doesn't really get credit for because I think he's very hard to work with. But he changed the permitting. The environmental permitting used to say like every one of these 500 acres is part of the liability of this property. When the plume of contamination is really just under the center 30 acres. So if you wanted to buy a building, if like Kevin Brady from Sirius wanted to buy a building along the rail, he would have been subject to that environmental liability. Yeah. So they changed that, and they did a generic environmental impact statement, which is also around 15 years old, 12 years old, about the same age as the work at Winston Farm. And that was some really great work. So, and that was expensive. I mean, I think it was $400,000 or $500,000 in just planning.
Soft costs are amazing. Because
they
never, when you talk about budgets for projects, you don't really consider soft costs, but they could easily be 20% of the construction costs.
Well, we have to do planning, and we have to do better planning than we did in the past, so it's going to cost more money. I saw the mayor for the city of Kingston, suggesting again that we do like a bicycle traffic safety. And then I'm thinking about Saugerties, where it's like, try to navigate Main and Partition on a bicycle. Take the back way. Go up Westbridge Street.
But I also say, too, I mean, I bike now, and I was thinking, there's really no need to ride your bike on Main and Partition Street. There's enough residential roads.
There's great roads.
I do 5 miles a night and don't even come close to Main Street.
Exactly. Why would you? It's such a...
We would come to the village from the Heights all the time.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was fun.
I tried to drive you off the road.
Yep, the kids are small. And it was a great way to spend the afternoon, and we would never make it up into the village unless we were going to one of the restaurants.
To go up to Partition.
Well, we would take Russell and go the back way, and you're just not competing with traffic because it's way safer, especially when you're with your 7-year-old daughter and your wife is kind of, I could feel her breathing on my neck to make sure she stays safe.
Hey, I saw you guys both, or maybe it was all three of you, in the governing article yesterday that came out yesterday about the creek. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, they released that?
Yeah, it came out yesterday, Governing Magazine, and it was all about the Esopus Creek and the discharges. And I just think it really spoke to, the impacts and costs on Saugerties in a really substantial way. And thank you both for speaking out on that. I think it was really, we are injured here, and some people don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
But that author did.
I can't wait to see the article.
Yeah, I didn't know it came out either.
Yeah, I'm excited though, and he was pretty thoughtful.
We had a tough spring with that.
We did.
I mean, the cover picture is like 2 kids at the beach, sitting in a bunch of muck with their toys. It's classic.
You're never going to see that on a travel brochure. It's just,
no,
I hope not.
Yeah.
We made a huge dent in the creek this summer with the harvester. I think
you guys are going to get a second harvester.
We're looking at it. Yeah, we're looking at partner.
Can somebody go out on? Can I go out on that?
You can go out on a harvester.
I want to do that.
Yeah,
we're looking at just because of the logistics of the creek, and people who are Upper Creek didn't think we brought the harvester down there enough.
Right.
And when we would bring it down there, it'd be gone all day because it's an hour or two to get all the way down, an hour or two back, and we had the GPS, which my code enforcement guy Cahill, we hit every aspect of that creek, and the GPS shows it. Unfortunately, people don't see it in front of their house. They figure we're not using it, but we removed over 70,000 tons.
And what happens to the debris?
It all goes up to our staging area on North Street, and it basically biodegrades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not all of it does.
No, but
remember last year?
Yeah. However, that stuff is pretty interesting because when you take it out of the water, it's this giant mass of material, and then it sits in the sun for 2 days, and it's just like a wheelbarrow, full of organic material, and that's it.
Yeah.
It really does break down fairly quickly.
I saw we have spotted lanternfly in Ulster County now, and when I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania last week, they were everywhere. They were disgusting. There were hundreds of them on the streets of the city. It was horrible. So I'm a little bit nervous.
We had our New York State, I'm on the New York State Turfgrass Board, and that was quite a topic of conversation yesterday.
They're pretty, but not by the hundreds.
So is that the thing? Because
invasive species, they eat over 70 species of plants and trees in our area.
Wait, where was this? In Harrisburg?
Yeah, in Harrisburg, there were hundreds and hundreds on the street.
Wow.
Yeah, disgusting. I mean, it was blanketed. But they're here now. I just saw, I think it was in the Cornell Cooperative Extension newsletter or somewhere, that there have been a few sightings in Ulster County. So
that's interesting.
Get ready.
They've been a problem out in the western part of the state, and it was only inevitable. And then I think it was last year, somewhere spotted in Long Island. So, you've got them here, and we're here, and inevitably.
I was like, what if one comes back on my car? What am I going to do?
It's kind of sad, though, because when you look, I love to come down Kraut Road in Saugerties and look at the mountain. It's just, every day that mountain, it's like it's alive. It's always looking a little bit different. But there's a lot of dead trees. The pines are struggling with the beetles. There's something working on the
Emerald
maple
ash
leaves
borer,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad because there's a 5 or 6% of the forest that is in trouble, And
plant trees. I mean, my property in Rosendale, Otto Spindler planted a lot of trees, and I am benefiting. And he's gone many years, decades. So we should all be thinking like that.
Yeah. We got quite aggressive this year. We're up to 14 new ones that we planted.
Yes.
We put 3 in at one of our satellite parks last year, and I'm hoping this fall, if not this fall, in the spring. The problem now has become the trees that we want to plant that are conducive for a park setting, a sports complex that have the higher canopy. They come from Oregon, okay?
Right.
You can't. There's delivery problems.
Right, and you also have to be planning for 20 years from now. What's it going to be like?
Yeah, you don't want to create a burden.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think everybody ran into it because those Bradford pears are so pretty in the spring.
Right.
But it's the worst tree for the Northeast.
But there's a third generation of Bradford pear that are much better.
Robust.
Still, the Japanese Sakova, which I believe you planted some in the village, it has a much higher canopy.
Okay.
So to cut underneath it, especially with a cab mower, it
works.
It's much better and it's hard. It's a hard tree, hardwood tree, not a soft, and it's a very nice tree.
I always feel bad because they flower and they look amazing. And one of my neighbors recently had one fail in the last windstorm. And I'm like,
well, look at the ones that we put in 15, 18 years ago in between fields 3 and 4, and how we've lost branches off the thing. But still, even though it looks oddly shaped, there's still a beautiful tree. Yeah. And one of the disadvantages in the fall, they're one of the last trees to lose.
To drop their leaves, so you're waiting and waiting
the
and
foliage.
waiting.
And the last 2 years, we've had fairly early snows,
right.
And then it accumulates on the foliage, down it comes.
Yep. Yeah. And the branch growth collects water, so when it gets cold, the ice pushes the branches apart and causes a split, and then more water gets in, and it just keeps on going.
March Gallagher, unfortunately, we got to find an hour slot for March.
Fees and money and
we said that
development, pilots, love it.
We said that to Michelle last week.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to come on with Michelle sometime. That would be fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we ought to arrange for that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day, and we'll be back with birthdays.
Great.
Listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston, on your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer? The Drug Facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the Drug Facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/Drug Facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Hi, I'm Ruth Quick from town of Ulster. I support Kingston Community Radio, and you should too.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and welcome back, listeners and viewers who have been with us. Those just joining us, 331-9255 is our call-in number. Fred Costello, Supervisor, Town of Sorgeties, is in the studio. Mayor from the Village of Sorgeties, Bill Murphy, is in the studio. And March is just hanging on here, Gallagher, who was with us the past half hour, because we have some birthdays to read.
I'm going to get to read a birthday today, and I'm keeping the seat warm for the next guest. But September 22nd, we wish a happy birthday to Rachel Weiss, your friends at People's Place. We hope you enjoy your special day, and I'm so happy to do a People's Place birthday. Happy birthday, Rachel Weiss.
And happy birthday to Carol Mahoney on September 22nd from all your friends at work, that we don't know where she works.
She knows.
She knows exactly. And I have Sorgy's birthday. Happy birthday to Tyler Corvin, with love from Mom and Dad, Grandma and Grandpa, and Jordan.
And today's winner of the famous cow pie from Boyce Dairy Milk House is Rachel Weiss.
And also one more birthday to announce. Our Tuesday co-host, Nina Postapak, is her birthday today. So happy birthday, Nina.
Happy birthday, Nina.
Happy birthday, Nina. So Rachel Weiss, congratulations. Happy birthday. When you get the opportunity, get down to Boyce Dairy Milk House right here, 62 O'Neill Street, right here in Kingston, New York. Pick up that famous cow pie, courtesy of Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. We had 3 of them today. That's great. Keep sending those birthdays in, listeners and viewers. Very easy to do. You can email to kcr921@gmail.com. You can postal mail to P.O. Box 4364, Kingston, New York, 12402. And Rachel Weiss, congratulations again. Happy birthday. Have an awesome day.
I have a question for you guys about the cow pie birthday situation. Can people just go into Boyce's and be like, yo, I won?
No.
Okay, what do they have to do?
No, you got to send them into Kingston Community Radio, and then like last Friday we send them in. The Friday before we send them in for the whole week. So, but if you want to go in there and buy one, I think they're only $8, Greg?
I bought them.
They're only like $8, or maybe they're 10.
So good.
Yeah, they are good.
Yeah, they're a great treat. They're worth $10 if that's what they are.
I eat enough on the day of the Happy Christmas Fund. Eat enough of their stuff on that day for the whole year, because they have the egg. It's like the first week they have the eggnog. I take some sour cream home with me. I eat. I don't know how many of those cakes, those ice cream sandwiches I eat. I mean, I'm in there like annihilating stuff.
So a few years ago, they had their 100th anniversary.
Yes.
Remember that? And we did that like ginormous.
Speaking of food.
Down on the round out. Hello.
Yeah, I think they're in. What is it? It's 102 now, right? Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
It's 102 years they've been around.
That was quite an experience making like
through 3, I think.
Ice cream sundae.
Yeah, 4 generations of family. Jesus.
Was that a Guinness World Record attempt?
I think it was a Guinness attempt.
Yeah. I wonder if it still stands.
I don't know the answer to that.
That's a curious
question. I don't know the answer to that. Well, thank you guys for letting me read a birthday. I'm going to go and have a great day. All right?
Bye, March. Thank you.
March. Bye, everybody.
Fun. So we'll be joined shortly by our assemblyman.
Yes, Kevin Cahill just walked in with breakfast.
Perfect.
And he must be headed up to Albany today. He's decked out in his...
he looks sharp.
Yes, he does. And I'm sure he's got quite a bit to talk about. I don't believe he... 2 weeks ago, he had some kind of a conflict and was not on. So I'm sure he's got a lot to update us.
Always does. Looking forward to it.
So the harvester, you're looking at buying a second one.
Yeah, him and I are talking about partnering and getting a second one, just so we can cover more areas of the creek and get more done.
So that's worth noting quickly before we get Kevin settled in. When we all Cornell Cooperative, Jared Bono, who grew up in Saugerties, they were great partners, and they helped us go through a matrix of what potential solutions might be to help manage the milfoil growth in the creek. Because the year before we did the harvesting program, actually with Captain Zeke at the time, we could not, it wasn't even passable with kayaks. The milfoil had basically taken over the entire surface of Barclays Pond, so to speak. So we knew we had to do something, and it was determined that even though there were some environmental risks with mechanical harvesting, that was our best, highest impact opportunity to prevent it from restricting the creek. And then we did it by contract the first year, and they made some improvement. And then the next year, the village and the town and John
Mullins made a $25,000 donation to
Right,
the
I
first
remember
harvester.
that. I remember when we were over there in the village garage on North Street.
Yep.
So when we did that, it gave us the opportunity to spend the entire season there. And Bill assigned it to Trustee Hackett, and then Al got involved, and it really took a little while to get a rhythm. But once it did, we made a nice impact.
Yeah.
And now I think this year, by any metric, the visual impact speaks for itself.
It does.
And it's successful. However, it's like a mile from the beach to the upper part of the creek, and it takes about a half hour
Right, and that's what the
to
mayor
load
was
the
saying,
harvester,
yeah.
and it takes an hour to get there. So you're only going to make 3 trips a day and have a limited impact. So with 2 harvesters and proper staging, we can kind of create 2 zones where we could take care of the village beach area and the upper part. And we're going to need a partner that's going to let us dump the spoils and store the harvester in that area. But if we can do this in our budget planning for this year, we're going to try to maintain the commitment we've started over the past couple of years. And I think if we can do that on the town side, the village will have the confidence to go out there and purchase a second harvester and run 2 programs at once.
Matter of fact, I think you saw, I know you don't check your email all the time, but I did get an email from Z yesterday, and he has some leads for us on a second harvester.
Perfect.
So I forwarded it to you and AL, and
Okay.
See what information he forwards, because I mean, he gives, he obviously helped us out tremendously with the first one. So
Yeah, none of us knew what a harvester even was, so him coming with some expertise.
I actually want to go out on it someday. I want to see what it's like out there for a day.
I'm sure it's great. Being on the creek, it's just fun to float around out there on a kayak or a canoe. Enjoy the scenery. It's pretty sharp. So, welcome, Assemblyman. How you doing?
Gentlemen, how are you? I'm
Very
sorry
good.
March had to leave, but
we
we had
persuaded her to stay for her birthday.
She wanted
at
to
least.
read a birthday, and we had 3 birthdays. And
she could have stayed for breakfast.
Could have stayed for breakfast.
Well, with everything that you brought in, yes, she could have stayed.
Colleen
for
had
breakfast.
a banner day of baking, so you got some good stuff today. So.
Yeah, it looks all great.
But everybody is good and healthy.
Yes, how you feeling?
I'm feeling fine.
Yeah.
I carry my papers to prove I'm not contagious. So. I have government issued papers to say I'm okay.
Perfect.
So, yeah. It was a bad run. I mean, I didn't have COVID the way you had it. I mean, you were very, very sick. I was very fortunate that it came after my vaccination, and the symptoms caused me to test, and they were the same symptoms that I experienced the day after my second shot. So I was like, yeah, this is the same thing. So each day. When I was asked by the health department, among others, they called me every day. I don't know if they did that with you.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. But each day they would say, how are you feeling? And I would say, twice as good as yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And each day I would say that. And each day I would think, oh, I'm better. Until the next day when I felt even better and better and better. I didn't realize how very, very sick I felt in the very beginning. Now, other people tell me I was very, very sick in the beginning, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like fatigue and...
So what, basically the symptoms were tiredness?
It was, what I experienced the day after the second shot was just gross fatigue, like complete, I couldn't move, and achy and very flu-like symptoms, I would say. A dry cough, which I never have a dry cough. And
This was after you got your second shot.
This was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
And it was similar to right after my second shot. My second shot was intense, much more intense in a single day. This was more spread out over several days, but it was the same symptoms. It was the same sort of reaction. And I was confused because originally it had been masked because my allergies are back. Everybody's allergies are back in big time.
Tell me about it.
And the first day I was like, oh, it's just my allergies. It's just my allergies. And then, so I took the test and it was like, yeah, positive. And so I asked the doctor if he wanted me to come in for a test. He said, Kevin, you have the symptoms and you have a positive home test. I think you got it.
Yeah. safe bet at that point.
Yeah. So, but I was really impressed with the health department's tracking. That was really important to me. Every day, a little bit of advice from the folks in the health department, the right questions, and sometimes I would volunteer information. They would say, we're going to make a note of that. I volunteered because we had a family funeral in the middle of all this, and well, it was at the beginning of this, and I was exposed to several people, and I contacted the ones who met the criteria. Less than 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, in the same room for over an hour. I contacted them, and virtually everybody got tested, and all the tests came back negative. So
fortunate,
yeah,
very fortunate.
So, but I'm still not sure who was the kind person who gave it to me.
I think it's a little bit, in a weird way, the vaccine has done so much to suppress the impacts of this, but in an odd way, I think the chance of someone walking around asymptomatic is higher.
Very much so.
So
yeah.
there's
and honestly, the week before my mom's funeral, I ran around like a madman. I was everywhere all the time, so it could have been anywhere. There was a lot going on. So yeah, it was. I'm glad I'm through it. I still have a great deal of sympathy for people who are suffering from it. I have a friend who's not having an easy time of it right now. I didn't know about that until yesterday, but he is hospitalized in bad shape. And
now, had he been vaccinated?
I don't know. But people, some people, even vaccinated people, are getting very, very sick. But most who are vaccinated are not. And that's the secret here. If I were not vaccinated, given how this hit me, if I were not vaccinated, I'd be one of those people in the hospital right now.
So the proof of the vaccine, and I was speaking with a doctor who has worked closely with the state administration to set up clinics and set up everything in our COVID response to first round. And he says the vaccine is extraordinarily successful, and the evidence is everywhere. And the rates of infection are fairly high right now.
Yes.
But the hospitalization's
down. And
way down.
I've said this, and it sounds heartless and cruel, but everything that we did over the last 2 years was about our hospital system. It wasn't about our people.
Yeah.
When our hospital system got overwhelmed, then other people who were also in need of hospitalization couldn't get it.
Yep.
When people who were in dire straits were coming in such numbers, the facilities across the state and now across the country, not here anymore, were stretched beyond their capacity. Searching for respirators, looking for building isolation chambers, things of that nature. It was all about the system, and we saved the system. We lost many lives. Too many lives were lost, but we saved the system, and hopefully now the system can serve the rest of us.
It was scary to hear last night on Nightly News, ABC. They interviewed, I forget what city it was in Alabama.
Yeah.
And hospitalizations were down, and the number of open beds had increased because of the number of people that had died.
Yeah.
And I forget what the time frame was, but it was over 200 people that had died, whether it was in the past week or the past 10 days, whatever. Every single one of those people that died were unvaccinated.
Yes.
Well, that's what Florida's going through too. Yeah. Right? Florida's got the highest numbers right now of deaths.
I mean, that's a scary thing when you stop and think about it, and you hear about over 2,000 deaths across the country every single day, and nearly 100% of those deaths are
And
people who are
let's
not
be
been
perfectly
vaccinated.
clear that there are people who cannot get vaccinated.
Oh, yeah.
And there are people who cannot get vaccinated, and the ones who are choosing not to get vaccinated who can are putting those people at risk. And,
Exactly.
I understand. I think it's all about freedom. The right to swing your fist ends where the next man's nose begins, is the old saying. And
I like that saying.
Yeah,
you're okay.
And right, that's about as close as you can get. But the idea that it's a personal choice is a wonderful thing to say. It's a little narrow-minded. It doesn't recognize the rest of societal responsibilities that individuals have. And it is putting at risk some people who are very susceptible. Let's take all little children right now, children who are getting this disease. In many instances, they're from unvaxxed families where the parents weren't vaxxed, and the parents brought it home, and then those kids get sick, and then who knows what happens next. That's the explosion right now in the hospitals is kids.
And that's the other thing I have a very hard time. Maybe it was just the way I was brought up and my beliefs, but as serious as this pandemic has been, and as long as this has gone on, if I had small children and I could get vaccinated, I chose not to. What would go through that parent or parents' mind if they got COVID, gave it to their kids, and then one of the parents died? And there's been scenarios like that where they've interviewed, but to put your kids in that kind of jeopardy and risk them not growing up.
Or making your kids orphans because you get it.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of that.
There's been a lot of that.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the one a few weeks back. We talked about this probably about a month ago or so, where the one parent was on an intensive care, and the 8-year-old was outside of the room, and it was obviously separated by glass. Mm-hmm. And then that father ended up passing away.
Yeah. Well, I guess the statistic of the week this week is that we exceeded the Spanish flu.
Yes.
In the number of fatalities.
634,000.
Yeah. Now, proportionately, the population was a third smaller, but we're there, and who knows where this ends up? Who knows what the actual result is? And for people who said, "Oh, there was an overreaction or there was confusion," yes, there was confusion because we were taking what was scientific information and pushing it out to the public before it was ready for public consumption. But at the same time, we were also seeing some manipulation on the part of different people to create scenarios that fit a narrative as opposed to dealing with the circumstance. So whether it was the President of the United States talking about this will all magically disappear in the spring because that's what he needed to say, or a governor who was saying, we have this under control in our nursing homes, that added to the noise that kept people from really taking this very seriously. And I'm glad we're at a point now where cooler heads are prevailing.
Well, I think 50. I don't know what the percent. I'd be curious what the percentage of unvaccinated people are unvaccinated because of, listening to bad leadership.
Well, it's
opposed to
interesting
just making their own choice.
Because the biggest issue around vaccinations generally, not just talking about the COVID vaccination, legislatively has been religious exemptions. And many people are claiming a religious exemption, which caused religious leaders across the country to say, we don't have a problem with this. It's not our religion you're protecting, And so I think that, when you take that element out of there and you substitute for it the judgment of an individual, for what a whole world of scientists and doctors and medical professionals have said, and you're going to substitute your judgment because why? Because you read something on the internet?
Well, that's the other thing.
That's exactly what they did.
Is this social media hype, and too many people apparently rely on that. And this nonsense, where things are constantly changing. That's a good thing that there's been changes.
It's science.
That just goes to show that the scientists and the researchers have continued to do their job, and as they've dove further and further in, there's new research that has come out. There's new scientific information that has come out, and let's face it. When they did the trials, there was a period of only maybe 2 or 3 months where these people were, when they were doing the trials, got vaccinated. So they didn't know if that period of time where there was protection was going to be 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. But then as the months went by, it became very, very evident it still offered a significant amount of protection.
Well, things have not changed. Our understanding has changed. Newton didn't invent gravity. he kind of just figured out the theory. So it was always there. This was always here, and it's just we're really just little by little parsing the issue down so that we can get to the point where we understand it better, and when we understand it better, we can respond better and hopefully protect better. And I think we're on the right track. I really do feel that way. I mean, as dislocating as it was for me personally in the past couple of weeks, it is nothing compared to what it would have been if I had been as sick as our good friend Mr. Costello was. Nothing. And so healthcare is more attuned to it. Society is more adapted to it. And I think there are some permanent changes here, by the way. I think particularly probably the biggest positive change, and this, we looking at this not quite in the rearview mirror, but the biggest positive change is the success of the vaccine. It is a brand new paradigm for vaccines. It is not what, this is not a Jonas Salk vaccine. It's a whole different way of inoculating people against disease. And it has great, tremendous promise for the future, particularly in the areas of cancer and things like that. We're going to see really, this is a man on the moon moment.
I agree. I agree. I think.
And by the way, as much as I bash him, as much as I don't want to ever say anything nice about him, you got to give Trump some credit for fast tracking it. Yes. And if it wasn't for the way it was fast tracked, we probably would not have allowed ourselves to do the sort of, I won't call it experimental, but forward-looking science approach that we took. So.
Yeah, mRNA, right?
Right.
But I mean, I go back to state of Florida again, leadership. Because of DeSantis' take on the whole COVID, how many of those deaths is he responsible for? Because people followed his lead saying, oh, well, Governor DeSantis says we don't need a vaccine, we don't need to wear masks, I'm not going to do it. Well, how many of those people have died? That's what I'm talking about, leadership, just giving false.
Or in Texas, where Governor Abbott threatened to arrest people if they did wear a mask.
They did wear a mask.
Can you imagine?
Did you hear about the couple this weekend in Texas got thrown out of a restaurant for wearing a mask?
Yeah.
I know.
For wearing a mask. The owner.
So where's the respect for personal choice in that scenario?
He has a sign, no mask allowed.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
somebody did that with their concerts too. Some comedian or some singer said, "I'm not going to do any concerts where masks are required." And believe it or not,
but they did it because they got paid anyway, so they definitely went.
So Van Morrison and Eric Clapton have an anti-vaccination song. I mean, it ruins.
Yeah, but he did a concert anyway.
It ruins Van Morrison and Eric Clapton.
Well, if you pay me enough, I was just kidding. Okay.
Did I say anti-vax? No. So
there's a cultural component to this. I get a great opportunity to talk to people from different generations, and the older folks, quite frankly, they don't get it. They're like, we don't understand the fuss. When we were kids, or when they enlisted in the military, they'd line up all the kids, never told the parents. Everybody got polio vaccine, everybody got mumps at school, or as you were preparing to leave for service in the military, and there was no debate or question about it. And we have lived the benefit of that in many ways. None of my friends have had to deal with polio. Mumps only happens in small pockets where religious objections were honored, and there's a whole anti-vax thing amongst our generation where there was concerns about links to.
Let's distinguish here, because I rarely do this, but I will distinguish between your generation and my generation. Mm-hmm. There's a very small component in my generation. There is a very large component in your generation.
Yeah. Yeah, so. And I have some odd conversations with some very, what I feel are bright people.
Yes.
And they try to articulate their objection. I'm like, that is all, none of that is based in science.
I have lifelong friends. We've all been lifelong friends. We're high school, junior high school, even elementary school friends, and we still hang out together. because I'm from a small town and that's what you do, who are not speaking to each other over this.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Last year, this past weekend, I went away on my golf trip with my 7 best buddies I grew up with, and we do it every year. And last year at this time, my best friend for life, Stephen Freer, we've been friends since we were 5 years old, and we've always been known to fight.
I wasn't going to throw my friend under the bus.
I'm throwing his name out there. He was in Kingston now, so I can throw him under the bus. No, but it was just as much me. We had an actual fight over this in the living room in front of the other 6 guys last year. And then when we got home, I texted him. I said, Stephen, we've been best friends for 50 years. Let's not talk this stuff. We shouldn't even talk. If we disagree, let's just disagree. Let's not talk about it.
Well, the vehemence of one friend and the incredulity of the other friends stretched them both to the limits.
And this had nothing to do with the vaccine. This had to do with the election last year.
Oh, well, that's another story altogether.
It didn't have to, Stephen did get he's pro-vax, but I'm saying but again, it kind of all ties in because the election had a lot to do with the vaccination. And I said, Stephen, we're friends way too long to have a fight over politics.
We've had those discussions as well. Again, a lifelong friend, somebody I knew from even before I went to school, had unfriended, I guess that's the term, right, on Facebook, dozens and dozens of people because they wrote something complimentary, neutral, affirmative about Trump. And he's like, well, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. It's like,
so, Mayor, apparently some things never change.
No, Steve and I have been fighting since we were...
Because you and Stephen fought when you worked for me after you went to college.
But I did pull him out of a pool when he drowned, and I always tell him that. That's
why you should win every argument.
That's always my comeback. I should have left you at the bottom of the pool.
Oh, no.
Not jokingly. But I mean, no, and it's great that we can have those differences, in opinions, but this is one fight you and I shouldn't have over something like this, because that could ruin a friendship.
My hope is that people, that we go back to a period of civility. I on September 11th, September 12th actually is what I was actually thinking of. The day after September 11th, 2001 was a day of great unity of people in this country. There was a handful of people who wanted to divide, but by and large, we were one unit, and it didn't matter. Even people of the Muslim faith who were Americans or were living in America were united together, and people were united with them. And somehow or another, from that moment to the modern day, we have moved to our corners, and that's got to change. That's not how a civilized society.
I mentioned that in my 9/11 speech.
Yes,
and I had the privilege of giving a speech on 9/11 this year, and I'm usually one who likes to joke, and it was a speech I really had to take seriously and think about, and it was very. I mean, first time I think I've ever been really nervous giving a speech.
It was impressive. I told you that when you got done.
I know, and I appreciate
that again.
But that was my thing, and I had done research, and I heard, and I'd heard before how on 9/11 or the day after, all of Congress stood up and sang "America the Beautiful" together. And I mean, and I pulled the video up and I had goosebumps, and I'm like, why can't we just be like that all the time? Why does it take tragedy to bring people together?
Well, I mean, but why are we taking our everyday life for granted?
Absolutely.
And watching friendships of a lifetime evaporate because people disagree about this, that, or the other thing, or I won't name names, but I had a good friend of mine who is a contractor, and he has done a lot of work for me. But going back to the beginning of the Trump-Clinton election, he became infuriated, and he wouldn't work for me anymore. Because I was Clinton and he was Trump. So about 3 years ago, another friend of mine, also a Trump supporter, said, "Hey, you know any contractors?" I said, "I got just the guy for you."
Okay, with that.
So I called him up and I said, "Listen, it's not for me, but it's for my friend. You're going to like him." And he did. He did the work, and he's been his regular ever since in Saugerties.
We are at the bottom of the hour. It's time to take a break. We'll be back in a few.
Listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston, on your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
To battle is to fight, to struggle, to overcome, and ultimately for the Marine Corps, it means to win. there is no alternative. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a promise to our nation. A promise kept for more than 2 centuries. A promise of the Marines.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and those listeners and viewers who have been with us this morning. Welcome back. Those just joining us for the last half hour, welcome. 331-9255 is our call-in number. We'd love to hear from you. We have our State Assemblyman, Kevin Cahill, here in the studio.
You might notice I didn't pull out a page of notes. That's because staff said, "You want some notes?" I said, "Nah, I think let's try winging it this week. See how that goes."
And you're good at
I said, if people want to read COVID statistics, they can look it up on the county website or on the Daily Freeman website or wherever it's listed on a daily basis. And I think it's time that we start being a little more forward-looking. In that regard, I will just, if I can take a moment for a couple of announcements.
Sure. Go right ahead.
We had planned to have a memorial, a service this week in honor of Private First Class John Cena, who lost his life in Vietnam, as part of our continuing series of these events, and we had to postpone it. And so if anybody was notified that we were going to do this ceremony this weekend, please be aware that it's postponed temporarily. We just have to work out a few logistics to get it back on track, and we're going to be doing that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But we sent out a letter to everybody we knew. We're doing a little thing on our Facebook page. We did a press release. The weird thing about the press release is we didn't put a press release out saying we were doing it yet. So we're sending out a press release canceling something we never notified the general public about. Just in case we can't reach some of the folks who might have heard by word of mouth. So that's one thing. The other is we have not 100% decided, but we are very close to deciding that the summer reading program is going to go virtual this year again. We had hoped to do an in-person summer reading program. The Kingston Library graciously offered their facilities. We are not sure that given the kind of gathering it is a very close gathering. It's only fun when the kids gather on the floor and their parents get to sit elbow to elbow in the room and watch them get their certificate and watch them, make fun of me for an hour, which little kids love to do. And if we can't do that in person, we had a pretty good experience last year virtually. We were, unfortunately, our entertainment, use that term loosely, that we were going to bring this year were animals. And animals don't necessarily translate well on Zoom. It's not the same experience. So we may be looking for different entertainment, or we may take advice from the person who was going to do the animals and see if they do have a Zoom-based presentation. But right now we're thinking of that. And if anybody is listening and their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, their nephews, their neighbors have not turned in their paperwork, we're still accepting it for the summer reading program. You can just call my office at 338-9610. I'll give that number again in a minute. to anybody who wants to find out how you can turn in that paperwork for your kids, your grandkids, your niece, your nephew, your neighbor, any of the children who participated. We want to make sure as many kids get recognized as possible. So just give a call to the office for Mike or Lauren or Ethan, Michael, Lauren, or Ethan, and at 338-9610 after 9 o'clock. They'll be there. Very, very happily anticipating any calls from people who want to participate. So that's our summer reading program. That's my announcements.
Okay.
We have a new governor.
We do.
So far, that's working out pretty well.
And I gather you're on your way to Albany today?
I am not, but I have meetings. And and besides having lived the past 2 weeks in sweats and shorts and flip-flops, I figured it's time. I had a meeting with the new Department of Financial Services Commissioner, Superintendent, yesterday. And it was a Zoom meeting. And I didn't put any goop in my hair, and I didn't have a tie on. I did have a sport coat on. And I said, apologies, this is my first day back in civilization. I said, I forgot. So I want to show the respect that's due. But yeah, I'm going to be doing some things in the district today, and it's good to be back out. And it's there's a lot to do, and there's a lot to catch up on. But luckily, we all have the opportunity to do that. And let me take one more moment of personal privilege and just thank everybody for their very, very kind attention and the showering my family and myself with flowers and baskets of food and things like that after my mom passed. She lived a good, wonderful life. She had a lot of friends, and she made a lot of contacts over the years, and she had a peaceful ending. So to everybody who expressed their condolences and gave us a call or sent us a card, thank you very much. So that's it for me. That's all the personal news I have today. Get off that Twitter.
No, it wasn't on Twitter. People know that I'm on the radio show every Wednesday, okay? And it's the same ones.
Same people.
Call you.
We have 8:40 today. We haven't got a call yet.
And anymore, and I'm sure all of you's experience it, it's like instant notification. They want instant response, instant,
You say that. The other 2 weeks ago, in the middle of all the other stuff that I was doing, and we had other issues going on in the office, at 9:30 at night, somebody sent a message to our Facebook account. And at 10:30 at night, one of my staffers saw it, and they probably made a note, we'll take care of this in the morning, but they didn't respond. At 11 o'clock that night, the guy says, well, I see you read my message and you're not going to do anything about it. This is a message at 9:30 at night before then, and it was 11 o'clock, and you haven't done anything about it. It's like, whoa, it's like that's not the way the world works. So.
Oh, yeah, the other day, I don't even use Facebook, but I have an account, and all of a sudden I got a notification there. Oh, you have a message on Facebook Messenger. I went out there, I had like 30 messages out there, and I'm like, so I responded in general. I said, I don't use Facebook Messenger. If you need to contact me, here's my cell number, here's my office number, here's my email. We have that
automatic response on there, and also with our email, we have an automatic response. We get, on a session day, we could get 500 emails, and so we have to cull through and see which ones were actually personally and addressed to us, but we send everybody that response because some days we just can't get to them all. And the same with Facebook messages. We have a kicker there that says, listen, call us.
Yeah, I got to put that in there permanently because I feel bad. I don't want people to think I was ignoring them, but I'm like, some are old, but
it's
a
really effective tool, but there's occasions where you just can't get to them all.
Well, and the thing is, there's so many. I don't feel I'm obligated to be on Facebook Messenger for residents. That's not my choice of communication. Mm-hmm. I have plenty of other ways people can contact me, and I just choose not to use Facebook Messenger. None of them were urgent things, and a lot, even some were happy birthday wishes, but, it's like, geez, I better turn this off or something.
I'm the same way. I have a Facebook account, but I don't post.
No, I don't. I post like once a year, like a tribute to my parents. That's about it. I'll put out there like their anniversary or something like that, and that's pretty much it.
I find it a fairly useful tool for some things. There's been
all for fundraising and things of that nature. It's good, and
I kind of use it for public service announcements.
Yeah,
a
we
little
do the
bit.
same thing.
Yeah, we have one for the office that we use for public service. Yes.
So I'll
Right, but it's not
capture-
your
Not my personal
right,
one.
It's
No,
Village
the-
of Saugerties.
Yeah, the village has their own. Yes.
Same way
generally-
we have one for
Right.
the ice arena.
Right.
I try to duplicate
My office maintains that.
the stuff that we put out there on my own personal account because I get positive feedback that people see it and they use that information. I just posted about the gnat that's killing all the deer herd, and that guy.
My brother was asking me. He's got a few calls from in his community.
Yeah,
the communities he represents.
It's a real thing, and it's a high percentage of the herd is being killed by this, and a lot of folks who live near bodies of water are suffering the smell of dead carcasses.
And the carcasses are landing on their lawn, and the public health authorities or the people that would usually take care of it generally don't go on private land. And so there was that issue as well.
Yeah,
So-
there's we've had a pretty broad response, and trying to give people understanding and guidance is hard. Some of the stories are really sad. You know, folks enjoy living here partly because you experience wildlife near your home, and now the fawn and the mom they've been watching all summer hasn't been seen in 2 months.
I'm nervous. I haven't seen the deer on my street in a couple of weeks.
You want mine? I'll send them over.
You got one
I'll be
enjoying
happy
your
to
shrubs?
send them over. Oh man, my apples are gone. My pears are gone. I can't. They ate the hibiscus. Come
They
on,
ate the
guys.
hibiscus?
Come on, man.
I didn't even know that tasted good.
They probably don't. They don't care.
They don't care. They eat
And,
everything.
and I watch them, because I see them on the ring goes off at 3:00 in the morning when they're out there at the buffet.
Mhm.
And I had my friend and I planted over 250 sunflower plants. You want to know how many sunflowers I had this year? Exactly none.
Oh, you didn't get any?
None.
You ate them all?
I ate every one of them before, and they weren't even flowering yet. And my blueberry crop, I usually get to pick. I usually go out and buy a pint of blueberries and then go in my yard and grab 5 of them and put them on top to make myself feel good. I couldn't even get those 5 this year. The deer had them, and they were desperate, and they just wreak havoc. You can have mine. And
Okay. I'll come home. They'll be right in my front yard eating my mums, and I mean they don't move for anybody, And it's funny because I'm in a village, pretty residential, but they come off the old Hitz property. And come down
I
the
live
cul-de-sac.
2 blocks
I
from
was
here.
gonna say you're pretty residential too. Yeah, I know. It's funny how they.
One morning coming into the studio, I saw one across John Street. I'm like, wow, that's a
Well,
rarity.
I think they're smart. I think they're like, hey, if I'm in this area, they can't shoot me.
I was on my way to the airport 2 years ago, and I'm coming across 199 up to the Rhinecliff Bridge. And you slow down as you approach the bridge, right? I slowed down as I approached the bridge. It was also a little bit misty out or foggy or snowy or something out. And up to my window, as
You're
I'm
looking
slowing
in?
down, this buck, it's like a giant, rack of antlers is like standing there like, I'm trying to cross here.
You're
in my way. And it was like, oh my gosh, that was
Right up to your window?
Right up to my window. I'd slowed down at the ticket booth, at the toll booth, and he just came. He came right up to me. It was just amazing.
Fun to see.
And then 3 years ago, on my street again, my poor neighbor, a herd gathered in his driveway every night for about 2 weeks. A herd. Like there had to be 12, 15 of them. And they all just kind of came from all directions and wound up in this driveway. And he just kind of hung around, said, "Hey, Herbie, what'd you do today? Did you bring the antlers in for a polish?" Yeah. I was like, "Okay, listen, I got to run. I got to go ruin Cahill's hibiscus." By the way, he's got apples down there. You might want to stop by.
Pretty good this season.
Can I offer just because I'm crazy? I heard you talking this morning with Marge Gallagher about the beverage industry, and while she gave appropriate kudos to Ralph Arrigo for being the first micro distiller in the state, and he was the only one for a long time at Tuttletown Distillery. Tommy Keegan was not the first brewer. He certainly was the most colorful brewer and remains deep in the heart of a lot of people. But Nat Collins started the Woodstock Brewery on St. James Street that Tommy ended up buying. Tommy bought that from actually the city of Kingston after Nat got out of that business. But Nat Collins, who went on to helped Joe LoBianco develop Skytop and now Rip Van Winkle, and Nat, who also is runs the beer festival every year. Was at Hunter, but I think it's moving now. So
The New York State one?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
and so he's a local resident, and he is actually the local inventor of micro. He was the first micro brewery in the state of New York. Was the one where Keegan Ales is today, and it used to be called Woodstock Brewing. Now Woodstock Brewing is up on 28 in Phoenicia, and they're doing a land office business too. But it is a hugely growth industry. Now we have distilleries all over the place. Interestingly, where we started. We've kind of eased off a little bit, and that was wineries. That's where we started. 25, 30, 40 years ago, there were wineries all over the place, and they still exist, but many instances, they're not making wine anymore. They're now venues. But the brewing and distilling industry is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's interesting. It's sort of very retro. 100 years ago, every town had their own beer. I don't know what the Sorgeties beer was.
Lorizell.
What was it?
Lorizell.
Lorizell?
Yeah, the building's still there,
Yeah.
and it had a long legacy as a brewery.
Every town used to have their own brewery, and it was, expected. Then pasteurization came along, and it didn't matter. You could do everything in Milwaukee and truck it all over the country. And then people discovered foreign beers, and, you could bring them across the ocean, and then all of a sudden they wanted it in their backyard again. So
There is kind of a circular thing to it, and it's interesting to watch the marketing, Bud, Coors Light, all those big heavyweight brands, they make hay off of sporting events and other big kind of congregative type of settings. But these other ones, they market in the window of a building. It's just completely different.
I
There's
remember
this cult following.
in Portland, Oregon, a few years ago, when Portland was, who was it you talking about Lake George? And a micro brewer or something every couple of feet. Well, that's Portland, Oregon. And at Portland, what they were doing, and I was there maybe 5 years ago, the brew pubs would feature one brew pub's brew each week. So if you were Fred Costello's brew pub, you might show up at Bill Murphy's brew pub that week
for the week,
or at Greg Chorvas's brew pub for the week, and around the whole, and then everybody
And it'd be
gets
reciprocated some other way.
A couple weeks later, it'd be somebody else, and I thought that was very cool. Of course, Portland is premised around Rogue Brewery. Rogue, which is a big microbrew. It's not a microbrew anymore; it's a macrobrew. But Rogue is the center of town there, and the Rogue Distillery is now too. So it's the whole economy. Around.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and kind of Sam Adams gets credit for being that first one that kind of break the trend
breakout,
of the And
I
they're
consider
giant
Guinness.
now
I
too.
think Guinness was the breakout, but that's a personal taste.
Yeah, well, Guinness is yummy. It's like a chocolate milkshake.
Well, now you can find, and I found it this weekend, that you get the non-alcoholic IPAs, and they're pretty good. I mean, I had one because I got tired of drinking soda this weekend, all the guys, and I said, usually if I extra NA beer, I get a Heineken Zero, which I enjoy, or a Labatt's. They actually had an IPA, and it was called Hateful Something or whatever. It was a good funky name, and I was like, wow, this is pretty good actually, and it didn't fill me up like normal beer. So it's nice that these IPAs and breweries are also offering non-alcoholic versions as well.
I was enjoying the root beer at Keegan's for a couple of weeks.
I love root beer.
Yeah. And back to alcohol for a minute. The cideries are growing too, and there's a cidery stand up on Route 28 by the Woodstock Santa Fe restaurant on 28, and the Hotel Dillon, that complex. And I was waiting for a friend one day. We were going to go to dinner at Santa Fe, and I just went and I just started. You can only buy samples, so I was buying some samples. It was delicious. It was so good.
It is fun.
Yeah. So
we, Kim was looking at colleges, and we ended up at Omegang because we're in the middle of Catskills.
Oh my goodness!
And that place is just you can't wait to go back.
I want to go there. I missed it. My friends went. We do I give a lecture every year at Otesaga Hotel, and we always every time we do it, a group goes off to Omegang, and I was like, oh, I want to go this year. I'm going to go this year, and I never get to making it.
Yeah, they got this amazing giant restaurant. You tour the brewery, but it's a complex property, and then they're really smart. The lay of the land is the topography behind the restaurant goes up a hill, and somebody had the foresight that it's a natural amphitheater.
Oh wow!
So they set up a stage at the bottom, and then people just kind of sit on blankets all the way up the hill.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
I'm not going to be at the Otesaga this year, and we weren't last year, obviously. But I take that trip every year, and I take the long way. And I, believe it or not, between here and there, I take dirt roads, and not many, but there's a couple of passes.
That's a commitment to find a dirt road.
No, it isn't. I mean, GPS found them for me. I didn't do it on purpose the first time, but they're passes. They're cut through. The highway makes a loop, but you take the dirt path between
Takes
the two.
the loop out.
But what amazing, astounding scenery all the way up and all the way back.
Yeah.
I'm on the New York State Turfgrass Board, and we had our first in-person board meeting since January of 2020. And the September one is always at the Otesaga.
Oh.
So I drove up, I left late Monday morning. And if you recall the weather on Monday, there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
Beautiful.
Beautiful sunny day. And you can't beat the scenery, especially like after you get through, even going up to Cobleskill, but on 10 and 165, 166.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. And then you see nothing but acres and acres of farmland and what I always say to myself as I'm going through these towns, you literally can go for miles and miles before you come to a store or maybe even another house.
Or when you're my age, what you really recognize is you can go miles and miles and miles and not find a bathroom. It is inevitable between there and also at the Sagamore. It's the same way. I'm just going to, I'm going to get off the Northway. I'm just going to grab the first bathroom I see. Where's the first bathroom? Another 10 miles. Where's that bathroom? Finally, you're thinking about knocking on somebody's door, going in there.
I was in Sagamore on Friday. We always play Sagamore Country Club on Friday when we go on our golf trip, and that's just unbelievable up there.
I've never been there somehow.
Beautiful.
It is really. I mean, they're very similar. The Otesaga and Sagamore have a lot in common with each other, and their orientation on the water, and their sort of the difference with Otesaga is it's right in the middle of town. It's like it's right there, but you walk out the back door, you could be at the Sagamore. Right? It's amazing. So
you stand on the first tee at Sagamore Country Club, all you see is mountains, and then you see the lake, and it's just an unbelievable view on the first tee.
I've seen it from the water. I've never been on the ground somehow, which is a little bit odd.
But
Otesaga is right in Cooperstown?
Right in Cooperstown.
Really?
And what
a really nice couple days then. Yeah. Perfect weather. You got to see Derek Jeter, right?
Were you up there for Jeter?
Did you go in Hall of Fame at all? You didn't? Okay.
No, just didn't have the time.
Didn't? Okay.
Well, I mentioned that I take all these back roads going up, but I often, when I get there, I say, I think I want to take the entirety of Route 28. And Route 28 winds up right smack a block away from Otesaga.
Yeah.
You can get on Route 28 and take it all the way back to Kingston, where it ends. Yeah. It ends in Kingston.
Really?
So it's also a nice ride.
What? I never thought about that. Yeah, 28 ends right at
Burger King. Huh? It ends at Burger King.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
It.
So if you take 28 straight out, but that's kind of the long way to get to Cooperstown, right?
Freddie, it's convertible. It's the fall.
Okay.
It's the Catskills. What are you talking about?
It ends too soon then.
No, it's a beautiful ride, and I'll take different ways back. Sometimes I'll come back through Hunter. Come down through Sorgeties, come down the back way through Sorgeties, but still not take any highway.
Go through Prattsville and all those places.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pratt Rock. You got to go to Pratt Rock.
Go through those, like right after one, I forget which storm it was, but
Irene.
For 2 years after the storm, I mean,
it was gone.
Those Margaretville and Prattsville and those places, they were decimated. Yeah. They were ghost towns. They were, houses. There would be 3 houses boarded up, and then 1 house that was occupied.
I'm sure you saw those 2 houses in a row where literally the entire foundation was complete. It was void, completely gone.
Amazing.
All due to water.
Yep. So
I like to do that too. When we went to visit one of the colleges, we went to Oneonta, and I left Saugerties through Platte Cove, and I stayed on those back roads all the way up. And kids like, where are we and why? And
I always
like,
went that way to Oneonta, Cortland, all those places. I always went back roads.
It's just I'd rather go that way, but
just beautiful.
Yeah,
get a little car sick sometimes.
You get car sick. The family gets car sick. A lot of complaining. There's no restrooms along the way. It was.
You got the Prattville car wash and it sells goat cheese. I mean, that's one of the
perfect.
That's one of my favorite stops. I get my car wash and get some goat cheese all in one spot.
All right, so next week I'll bring notes.
Yeah. It's a relevant conversation because the leaves are about to turn.
Yeah.
And, it's a nice ride to go up right now.
They've already started up there.
Really?
Yeah.
Even Saugerties, our own little niche, I always say, when you come down 9W towards the bridge and you look out and you see the mountains and the foliage, that's just one of the best views in Saugerties coming down that hill.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm so glad I painted the bridge red because it kind of blends in with the scenery.
Yeah, it does.
But that's really just a beautiful. You stand at like where LeBlanc's live, right at the top of the hill, and look down the bridge and the foliage. It's amazing view.
The only comparable view to that is Kraut Road.
Kraut Road, absolutely.
You mentioned that earlier, and I'm fortunate where every single day, that's how I get to work. Anytime I go to the village, I don't use the 9W. I go down my Kraut.
There are stunning, stunning views all over the Hudson Valley. And by the way, one of my favorite restaurants is reopened down in Highland. The Gunk House had been closed for several months because a car went in, caught on fire. The whole building caught on fire when a car went through the front of the building. But talk about an amazing view. They have a deck where you can literally watch a storm go across the valley.
That's cool.
It's just amazing. The view of the Gunks. It's just really it's a great little place, and they have good food too. So,
perfect.
They're reopened, and I went down there.
I remember that story vaguely. That they were on a sharp turn or something,
Yes,
right?
They're right on the corner. Yeah. And but we had been going there regularly, and then I was checking, and they weren't open. And then I called just on a lark. I called a couple of weeks ago. They said, "Yeah, we've been open since Father's Day." I was like, I could have been there all summer.
There's a lot of opportunity.
We are just about out of time. Kevin Cahill, our state assemblyman, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Glad you're healthy and well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. Thank you, Supervisor Fred Costello. Thank you, Lawrence. And most importantly, thank you, listeners. We'll be right back here next Wednesday.